So the next part we shall go to in the still the fifth step is forming the cavities to the walls. All right, so when we are forming the cavities to the walls, what do we need? We need to find the center line. Forming cavities in the cavity walls. If you look at the section, you realize that the cavities are only in the external walls. So to form this cavity, we usually calculate the area of the cavity by taking the center line times the depth. Now, to find this center line, how do we find it for the cavity? Remember, this external skin is 103 millimeters thick. The cavity is 50 millimeters. Then the inner skin is 100 millimeters. So, to calculate the area of the cavity, we shall need to take the center line of the cavity. How do we calculate the center line of that cavity? We have the external perimeter of the wall. So here it's the tricky part. What you do, you will take the external skin measures 103. This one, 103 brickwork. Then we will take half of the cavity, half of 50, which is 25. You realize that half of this wall will be 253 divided by 2, but the half of this wall will not be the center line of the cavity because this wall is bigger than this one. So what we'll do, because we are using the external perimeter, we will take the thickness of this wall, then half of the cavity, then the thickness that we shall get to the center, we will multiply by 2. We shall assume that the wall, to balance the wall, and we want the center line of the wall that is forming from the outside to the center. So that's why we'll multiply by 2, because we want to assume that wall is equal on both sides so that we can find the center line of that wall. We are forcing the center line of the cavity. We are using an imaginary wall. It's not this wall, because this wall, this external skin has exceeded the internal skin by 3 millimeters. So even if this one was 50 millimeters, we would just have taken from the outside up to the center. We multiply by 2, then we multiply by the number of corners, just like we do. So we shall take the external perimeter, then we deduct number of corners times twice the thickness to get to the center of the cavity, and it shall give us 1.0424. So this one minus this one, we shall get 39.676. So that is the average mean girth. So what is the depth of that cavity? The depth of this cavity is the depth from here up to where the cavity is. So what do? We shall check the depth from here actually up to here. You can see the cavity is up to here. All right, because here you can see this is a different material, is fiberglass. So fiberglass will be different with the cavity. All right, so we shall take the center line, which we have got 39.676. Okay, 39.676 rounded off to 2 decimal places is 39.68. Then we shall multiply by the depth of the cavity, which is 0.68. So this one is forming cavities, HWS, that is meaning, that one you'll get it on the video, 50 millimeters wide, ends of butterfly wall, ties to BS, that 1234 at the rate of 4 per meter squared. All right, so so we have got the area of the cavity. The next one is this one, ditto, forming cavities for fiberglass. All right, this one was forming cavity for the concrete. Now this one is forming cavity for the fiberglass. Ditto means as above. So this one, how do we calculate the area where the fiberglass will occupy? The same center line, because the same center line for the cavity, the same center line for forming cavities for the fiberglass. It is this one. Then the depth, the fiberglass will cover from here to here, which is 150. So it is 0.15. All right. So we shall go to the next step, which is taking off in situ concrete. for filling in the cavity. All right, so we want to take off this concrete that is filling in the concrete that we are filling in the cavity. So to find this concrete, we shall take the center line of the cavity, which we had got as 39.68. Then we shall multiply by 0.68. 0.68 is the depth of the cavity. All right, then we shall multiply by the thickness of that cavity. The thickness of the cavity is 50 millimeters thick, so it is 0.05. So this one is in situ concrete, ratio 1:10 for filling in the cavity, and it is less than or equal to 150. So the next one is damp proof course of single layer high load pitch polymer to BS 743 bedded in cement mortar, ratio 1:3. So the DPC is on surfaces of less than or equal to 25 millimeters wide. You see the DPC is on this wall, under this wall. It is the one that will separate the foundation wall and the superstructure walls, and it will lie below the whole wall. All right, so how do we calculate the area of the DPC? So we shall take for the DPC we shall take the center. This one is the center line of the external wall. This one is for the external skin. You can see the external wall, the outer skin, the center line of the external wall. Then we multiply by the thickness of that wall. It was 103, so to two decimal places 0.10. Then the DPC will also be found under the internal wall. So we shall take the center line of the inner skin multiplied by the 100 millimeters, which is 0.10. The DPC will also be found in the inner wall. Inner wall, it is this one. Here we still have the DPC, damp proof course. The foundation wall and the superstructure wall will be separated by damp proof course. So even below the internal wall will have the DPC. So how do we take it off? We shall take the center line of the internal wall, then we multiply by the thickness of the internal wall, and the thickness of the internal wall is 100 millimeters thick blockwork. So it shall be 7.19 and 0.10. All right, so the next one is taking off the facework for the walls. Facework for the common brick on the walls. You see, when we have the section here, you see this one has been brickwork. When it is brickwork below the ground, it is just brickwork. But when we come up from the wall, from the ground, we need to do some facework on the brick so that it can look good. For the brick, we usually do for the bricks above the ground, but we always give an allowance for one course which is below the ground. So that's why you'll see it's 150. 150 is the brickwork above the ground. Then one course of brickwork measures 75 millimeters. So the total brickwork that we shall do some facework is 150 plus 75, right? So it shall be 225. So how do we measure the area of this brickwork that we are doing some facework? So we shall say facework, deduct common brick in street as above described. You know, we had already calculated for that one course for this brickwork together. We found when we are finding the area of the brickwork, we found it up to the top. But now there's some area that we need to do some facework. So we shall deduct from that brickwork this area. So what is the center line of the brickwork? The brickwork center line was 40.29. Then depth of that brickwork whereby we shall do some facework is 0.23 because we have found it here. So 40.29 and 0.23 is the walls that we had done above. Then we shall add this area to Facework on Brickwork in mixed russet. You see, this one is the description for the specification of the brickwork, the Facework that we need to do on the brickwork. So we shall deduct this one, this area, from the previous brickwork we had done. Then the same area we shall add it to the Facework for the brickwork that we shall do. All right, so we shall just write the description, the specification, then we say on walls for the Facework on site. All right. Yeah.